Good afternoon, legends. Welcome to another episode of Harder to Kill. And it's a special episode of Harder to Kill today because for once, Mick and I are in the same place. So instead of dialing in, we're sitting at the same table. Mick, how are you, man?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Really good, really good. We're all up at the Spartan Boot Camp today, up at Brisbane at Urban Extreme, which is why we chance to do this podcast live together. So it should be an interesting one today, man. We're talking about sleep again, which is a topic so big that we decided to split it into two episodes. How's your sleep been this week, Nick?
Well, except for last night, yeah, it was good. Last night, not so much. And that, Aussie Rules Grand Final, I'm a Victorian boy, so got to watch the footy.
Yeah, fair call. I'm in the same boat, man. I'm in the same boat. I had Raw Challenge yesterday, so we were out and about running, and I was up early for that. I had a terrible, really anxious night. Sleep the night before, heaps of weird nightmares, and I don't know what sort of set it off, but had a really bad sleep, and then last night I didn't get enough, so I can feel the wear and tear of just a few nights of bad sleep. So we've got a couple of people jumping on. Give us a hashtag live if you are watching live, guys. Just like the pros, and somebody who hasn't logged in has given us a hashtag live. So what we need you to do is just log into the comments at the link in the description to this video, and I've just typed it into the comments. You can log into Be Live, and once you log in, we can bring the comments on screen, just like Dora said. Live, massive thunderstorm. We were actually going to do this outside. I had some chairs and tables set up, and I'm looking at the weather, and it's about to piss down. So we moved into the kitchen. But Kara's here as well. And Dora, you didn't sleep, ran late last night doing did a Raw Challenge with us and then the Ultravirus. So you've had a big night, so definitely rest up. That is the link, guys, so you can log in there. So if you do want to ask a question or if you just want to show us some love, log in at that link, fact.belife.tv/comments issue. Corey's here, Kara's here. I think I already said Kara's here. Yeah. Kara's live twice, and Matty Probe is here. So and saying Sydney's similar. Live from Taz. Who's live from Taz?
Yeah,
we can't see who you are. So, Mick, we had a big episode last week talking about sleep, and we decided to sort of cut it at about 90 minutes in to try and keep these videos somewhat digestible.
Yep.
And it's a big topic, and you were saying you went away and did a bit of research and research some of the stuff that we're talking about, research a lot of the stuff that we will be talking about today. Yeah. One of the things that I'm really loving about this project, as I said to you earlier, is it's making us research. We know that we're going to talk to you guys about sleep, so that means both of us go away and we get our nerd on and we get deep in the research hole and read books and find info where we can and obviously distill it down for you guys. But what's the most interesting fact you read about sleep in the last week?
Well, I actually checked in more on that chronotypes, what you're talking about, and It was interesting to find because when we were talking about you're either sort of a late or, an early starter or a late starter.
Yeah, and it's genetically programmed, right?
But to find out there's actually 4 different types. That was really cool. Like there's a dolphin, there's a lion, bear, and the 4th one was... Just said it a minute ago.
You did say it like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, having a mind blank all of a sudden.
We'll just start talking about something else. It'll come.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, actually, the fact I'm having a mind blank is a perfect example of sleep because I actually only got about 3 hours last night.
Makes you fucking dumb,
so
man.
You can see it, and yeah, that does. It lowers down through the cortisol and stuff, which I believe you've been doing more research into yourself.
Loads. We're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff today. We did get into memory last week, though. We were talking about NREM. Being the part of the sleep that takes your memories out of your hippocampus, so your short-term memory store and basically archives them.
The fourth one was wolf.
There you go.
There we go. See, I'm catching up.
That's what you have to do. If you can't think
Yeah.
of something, you just fucking put your brain in another area, another direction, and you just let your subconscious mind work on it, and it'll pop up. Just hopefully it doesn't happen at 2 a.m. while you're asleep. Yeah, so we're talking about the NREM sleep taking the memories out of your hippocampus, which is like your short, your short range memory, your short term memory stores, and it archives them and stores them overnight. So if you are, and that's something we'll talk about today, if you are tired, you get way fucking dumber. You don't remember shit. You can't recall facts. This is the same if you are tired and then you study. Obviously you can't recall, but they've done studies where they've made people sleep deprived and then given them facts and then let them catch up on sleep for 3 days and then find that those memories are gone. So it's super, super interesting. But so what was the most interesting thing you read about the chronotypes?
Well, I'm still going into it a little more. I only just recently touched on it myself, but the fact that, like a lot of people, the highest type is known as the bear, which is late starter sort of stuff and that. And yet we don't actually go to that. The like education work system that adopt more of I think it was a wolf or which is one of the funny thing about the wolf one is not many people that are ideally for the wolf. And what this means is basically these different chronotypes are not just like getting what time is best for you to get up and go to bed, but it's also what sort of times is best for you to work out, optimize your hormone productions, testosterone productions, also stuff like that as well.
Yeah, so on average, your testosterone peaks on average about 2 p.m. in the afternoons, and this is all set by your circadian rhythms, which we spent a lot of time talking about last week. It's also 2 p.m. in the afternoon is also the best time to conceive on average if you're a woman. So if your man's ducking home on his lunch break,
get in,
might make it happen. But yeah, so it's super interesting, and this stuff is genetically hardwired. There's not a great deal you can do about it. We're going to be talking about hacking your sleep and biohacking at the end, and that's how you can sort of tweak things. But ultimately, you got what you got, and if you try and fight against that, you're gonna get high disease. You're gonna get higher rates of depression, mental illness. You're gonna get much higher rates of cancer. You're gonna get higher rates of dementia. You're going to have a lot more problem losing weight. So, and these are things that are all documented in shift workers and people who don't sleep, who go against their natural body clock. So, yeah. So, because I think that was something that we were talking about last week that you didn't know a lot about those chronotypes, and I sort of always had thoughts about it, but I'd since read that it was sort of fact and it was really well documented fact. And then you've gone away and done your own research. So that's one of the coolest things about this program. We've got another one here who's saying they're live, but they haven't signed in. Apparently it's James Garlick, live in Taz. How are you, man? You know better, James. Click the link, log in. And Donna Beering's here as well. Hello,
I got to meet Donna today.
Is that the first time you met Donna?
Yeah, it's the first time I met Donna.
Cool.
She killed it today when putting up with me for our side of the workout part of it.
Donna's amazing.
Yeah.
Donna's amazing. Everyone split into their groups today, and I'm like, "Where the fuck's Donna?" And she was at the opposite side of the gym to me. I'm like, "Yeah, that tracks. Makes sense." She's in a black gear hiding from me.
Hey, she had to put up with me though.
You were nice to him. You were nice to him. So we were talking about sleep, what it is, why we need it, last week. This week we're going to talk about what happens when you don't get it, and then at the end we're going to talk about how to get more of it, right? So that's sort of how we're going to go. I did start to talk about what happens when you're tired. It's something that, we're very good at as a society at saying you shouldn't drive when you're drinking, you shouldn't drive when you're doing drugs, and we're very, very apathetic about driving tired. And you and I both said that stories where we drove tired. It was not a good thing. I remember I've had microceps on my motorbike, which is not great. But we tend to be not so worried about driving tired, and driving tired. People who are driving while fatigued causes more accidents than people driving on alcohol and drugs combined. And one person an hour dies in the United States from tire-related injuries. And the crash rate, like automobile crash rate, would be much higher than that. So we're just talking crashes that resulted in a fatality. So they're pretty fucked stats, Nick. And what I'm going to say, a couple of these statistics, and we'll do a little bit of a question first in the comments here. We've got a couple of people watching. You know, how many of you get 7 hours sleep a night and consider that to be normal? How many of you get 6 hours a night? How many of you get 6 hours sleep a night Monday to Friday and then have to catch up sleep on weekend? How many of you get 5 hours sleep a night? How many of you get 4 hours sleep a night? So just let us know. Give us a rough rundown in the comments, and just let us know what you survive on. Nick, what do you usually? How much do you usually get? How much sleep?
I now try to get. Well, actually, I try to get about 9 hours on the regular, but minimum is 7.5. Cool. So I'll do overnight will be 7.5, and then I include actually some napping to try and get me around the 9-hour mark, depending on where I am with my training cycle. If it's a little more, like currently right now I'm doing 2 a day, so I use it as another chance to recover a little better and make sure everything's not overdoing it.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I do the same thing when I'm working a lot harder, if I'm doing big events. This 28-day reset, I've had a much higher output as far as mental, physical demands on the body, so I'm trying to get a little bit more sleep where I can. You haven't always slept well though, have you, Mick?
Oh no.
So, what was the turning point for you? What was the point where you went,
well,
it's not good?
It was actually when I was working at 3 different locations as a coach, and then because I was in that mindset of, you can sleep when you're dead, do more stuff. I also took a night gig doing some valet because I have no problem driving. I've been driving since I was like 10 in the country. Yeah. So being a valet at the airport, parking cars to make that extra couple of bucks. And I actually fell asleep just sitting in a car. So I got in a car, and at the valet, you're supposed to drive them off. I had a whole bunch of cars in front of me waiting for people to get in those to take off. Head down. Next thing I put my head up, cars were completely gone. I was like, what the? Lucky no one saw me asleep though, so I got to drive off the jet. It was that point, and I couldn't even talk. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, just fucked.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty sobering story, and that's pretty fucked up. I've done the same thing. I've been driving home from when I was doing project management. We used to just work from Friday to like Sunday night, and you go out and catch an hour nap in the car in the loading dock, and then go back up and keep working. And I remember like driving home, and you'd be driving home, and you'd stop at a set of traffic lights, and you'd be like 4 deep at the traffic lights, and then you just wake up, and you're the only one there, and all the cars have just driven around you. And that's really, really fucking scary. But what's way more scary is micro-sleeping. Micro-sleeping is what kills people. It's pretty rare. It's a lot more rare that somebody will physically fall asleep at the fucking wheel. But what's dangerous is you can still be driving and still look like you have cognitive function. Your eyes are still open, but there's literally your brain has gone, I need a fucking nap, and just turned everything off and turned all of your sensory input off. And that's the scary bit, and that's where people die. And let's have a look at some of these comments. So we all hide from Matt Moore.
Yep.
That's fair. Donna says Mick was nice. He's loved it. Corey is saying I survive on 3 to 6 if I'm lucky. Funzi, I'm terrible at sleep. I get roughly 5 hours on weekdays and 7 on weekends. Donna saying 4 hours unbroken. Una, who's a new person I haven't seen before, commenting. 6 to 7 hours. I'd say that's probably the average, 6 to 7 hours. Somebody else is live. Make sure you log in at Be Live if you're going to give us some love. And Cara saying I need more sleep than I get. Ideally 9 hours, 5 to 6. Somebody said, what's the last point you should eat before sleep? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Have you got anything specific to weigh in on eating before sleep?
I've got a few things on we can go into. Yeah,
we'll talk about biohacking a little bit. Probably towards the end. But if I don't remember to come back to that comment, remind me. So probably the average in the comments, 6 hours, I would say. I would say the people watching are probably the people who are more like, well, that's for me. I need to fix my sleep. So some really, really interesting statistics. So they did some studies, they did some tests where they basically got people in to sit in front of, say, a computer screen, and every time the screen flashed, you hit the space bar. Really, really simple study, really simple experiment. And what it's testing is reaction time. And obviously, as you get tighter, the reaction times get a little bit slower. And that's a big problem, right? So they reckon, and I said this last week, they did a test, they did a study in Australia actually, and they tested to the legal driving limit in the state, which is 0.08. And they found that somebody who's been up for 19 hours is just as impaired in reaction time as somebody who is driving at 0.08 alcohol, which is actually more than we have in Australia, which is 0.05. But that's just slowness in reaction times. What these guys started to find with these studies is there were periods where the screen would flash and the people didn't even register it at all. So these are micro sleeps. So this is when your brain's just completely switched off. And if you have this while riding a motorbike, or you have this while going around a corner, or a car swerves in front of you or hits the brake suddenly in front of you, and your brain has switched off for those 2 or 3 seconds, you're fucked. And there's a lot of animals that do this. Birds in migration, or they fly seconds at a time. But this is a big problem. And what happens with sleep deprivation is the more of it you get, it's not like if I don't sleep for 24 hours, I'm tired. And then if I don't sleep for 48 hours, I'm twice as tired. It's like, it's fucking exponential. So it goes up like 400%, 800%. So it's not going up in, a linear, it's like the fucking COVID infection rate in March, So it's, and that's the scary part, because a lot of us get around sleep deprived. So really interesting fact about this was that I read is they were looking at the reaction times and the amount of micro sleeps of people who had 24 hours sleep deprivation. So they've been kept up clinically in a lab, not allowed to sleep for 24 hours. And a lot of us are, do crazy endurance events. There's quite a few people watching here who've probably done a 24-hour enduro, big hurricane heats. We make a business of pushing our limits and staying awake as long as we can. And I've certainly stayed awake probably, I reckon I've probably stayed awake for 72 hours. The biggest I've stayed awake. When you've been awake for 72 hours, you can't even fucking function. You can fall asleep standing up. You're fucked. But if you've been awake for 24 hours, you're pretty fucking impaired. Like, you shouldn't be driving a car, right? What they found was if you get 4 hours sleep a night and do that for 3 nights in a row, you are just as impaired as somebody who's not slept for 24 hours. If you get 6 hours nights of sleep, 6 hours sleep a night, and do that for 5 nights straight, you're exactly the same amount of impaired as somebody who's not slept for 24 hours. And this was all by micro sleeps. And this was really a sobering and interesting fact for me to read, because that was my life, and that often is my life. I probably get 6 hours sleep a night. I'm getting a lot better at it recently. This year I'm getting a lot better at it. But I think most people watching here and have said in the comments, 6 hours sleep a night and then a little bit of catch up on the weekends is the fucking norm. Like, that's the regular. And we did say last week, Nick, you can try to catch up sleep, but you can never catch up what you've missed. You can never catch up what you've lost. Your body will bounce back. So if you've been up for like a 24-hour hurricane heat or something, you're probably going to sleep 12 hours after it. You'll have that huge sleep. And we spoke about, the body will really feast on NREM sleep at the beginning. So the first night, your body will really catch up on that NREM. You'll just be fucking in that dead tired, like archiving memories. That's when your brain's doing its cleaning. It's like the council workers going through your brain with the pressure washers overnight while you're in this NREM sleep. But then what's interesting is in the second and third night after, while you're catching up, your body then swings. It's got enough NREM, and now you start to get a lot of REM sleep. And that's where your body's making those connections between the memories and stuff. So you need both types of sleep. But it was really, really interesting for me to learn that 6 hours sleep a night for 5 nights, you're just as fucked as somebody who's been awake 24 hours. What would you say? Do you get 7 to 9 hours sleep a night every night now?
Well, 7.5 every night is I like a good number for me for sleep.
Yep.
And then, as I said, yeah, I'll try and increase like either another 45 to another hour and a half, 90 minutes throughout the day depending on how big the day is and how the training is going.
Yeah, cool. It's something I guess I've become a lot stricter on myself.
Yeah.
I make sure I get it because now I'm learning how much it fucks with my performance. I'm learning how much it fucks with my mood. I'm learning how much it fucks with my creativity. And you're just running on fucking limp mode without it. So, and we'll talk about all that soon. But there've been comments rolling in. Matty probes, I've had a Whoop band for a few months, which measures my sleep, gives me a percentage, it then converts it into amount of exercise I should do for the day, depending on my sleep quality. Yeah, we definitely sort of touched on that last week. Garmin does something similar. The Oura Ring does a really, really good job of it. But as we said last week, the data is just a data point.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to learn to listen to your body. Sometimes I wake up and my ring is saying you need a rest day. And I'm like, fuck that, I feel fucking amazing. Some days, it's telling me
you're deaf.
telling me I'm good, and I'm like, I'm not fucking good. I'm going to get on the lounge. So all of these things help, and we will talk about some tech at the end. Dora's saying, haven't got my car today.
Nice.
Good. Dom said I just did a chronotype test on the line. I knew you were on the line because you get up at like 4 in the fucking morning, and I'm like,
that's the reason we got along.
Like, don't wake me up. I'm asleep. So somebody said, I've been working on this after last week's zombie moment that ended with a flat battery in my car, sitting around 7 hours on average, 8 hours a few times last week. So I don't know who that is because they haven't signed in. But just let us know. Sign in if you can at the link in the description of the video. But let us know if you're feeling better or more sleep. What about naps to catch up a few times a week? So a really interesting thing I'll talk about quickly is, I think Storm's coming in, is we, for a long time, we were in certain places of the world were adapted for biphasal sleep. So there's still African tribes and stuff which don't really have technology, they don't really have lighting or anything. And they still, they will go to bed at like 9 at night, 10 at night. They'll be up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And then they'll have a nap, for an hour in the hottest part of the day. They did, and there's still siesta cultures around the world. Some of South America do siestas. Some of like the Mediterranean do siestas. And they actually did a big study around like the late 90s, 2000s in Greece. They started to phase out the siestas. So what was happening over there? So places were open like 8 in the morning until 2 p.m. and then they were shut until like 4 p.m. and then they were open until like 7 at night. The reason was everyone had a nap. And what they did, they did some studies there, and when they removed that biphasal sleep and they studied the health impacts of all the men there, and they found that their over the next couple of years, their cancer rates, their all the cardiac problems, cholesterol, that type of stuff went up like 60%, like fucking crazy. So we do function quite well on biphasal sleep, but what's really important to, and that's what we were talking about, the length of the sleep cycles. The way we've adapted to have these sleep cycles that function in waves means that you can get more digestible pieces of sleep. So naps will help, but nothing will help you like a good, 7-8 hours sleep. So you're sort of you're damming the flow with a nap, it's much better than not getting sleep. I know when I was a face-to-face PT, I napped when I could. I got like 4 hours sleep a night, but napped for a day. But ideally, get sleep overnight if you can. My mouse doesn't want to work. There we go. We're back. Dora's saying I'm 4 to 5 hours. The other thing that I'll say, there's a really, really small percentage of the world, really, really small, who can get by on less sleep. They can get by on like 5 to 6 hours and just function completely fine.
Yeah.
They've worked out what the specific gene is. We don't know why it works. We don't know how it works. But there's this really small part of the population that say they can get by on less sleep. But your chances of being one of those people is much less than being struck by lightning. So you might hear me say that and say, I'm definitely one of those people. You're probably not. You're probably just sleep depriving yourself all the time. And as we said last week, you get this new baseline. And the other thing that they've tested is people, as they get sleep deprived, they've tested them for their own confidence in their own cognitive ability. And as you get more sleep deprived, you don't realize how impaired you are. And that's a really dangerous part of it. It's a bit vicious. Somebody said my best was late last year, working huge job, was up at 7 a.m. Monday until midnight Friday night. Yeah, and you know, we wear it like a badge of honor. We talk about, I've been up 72 hours, how good am I? And yeah, you're just dying faster, you know, which is a weird thing to be happy about. Sorry, it's Ree. You will be sorry, Ree. Just log in at the link in the description. You should be able to just log in, real easy. And Corey's saying, I feel like that would be me. Yeah, so sleep deprivation works exponentially. The more of it you get, the more you're fucked. You can't catch it up. And it just keeps compounding every single night. So if you're getting 6 hours a night, you are fucked within 4 or 5 days. You're in a really, really bad place. Now, a really interesting study that's done, because we're all very nonchalant about missing sleep, but some of you might be saying, well, I catch up on my sleep on the weekends, or I always make sure I get sleep on a Wednesday night, or I always make sure that I don't go more than 2 days sleep deprived before I catch it up. Better than nothing. But there's probably one of the experiments that's got some of the most statistical power of any experiment you'll find or study, and it's done on 1.5 billion people a year, and that's daylight savings. So every year in a couple of places, except for Queensland where I live now, it's fucking early, it's light so early in the morning. I hate it, but in North America, in heaps of the Northern Hemisphere, in heaps of Australia, we have daylight savings. And in spring, we lose an hour as the clocks wind back, and then in March or fall, we gain an hour as the clocks move forward. Or I've said that the other way around, but you guys get the idea. And what happens in daylight savings is we've got these 1.5 billion people that are a huge sample size for a study. There's a huge spike in heart attacks and strokes, on the day of daylight savings, because people lose 1 hour's sleep. So there's a huge spike in heart attacks and strokes. There's a huge spike in car crashes and road fatalities. And this is just from 1 fucking hour. 1 hour people lose, and it spikes the numbers this much. And if that doesn't, make you go, wow, the other half of the year, when it goes back and we gain the hour, strokes and heart attacks, there's a huge dip for 1 day. And road crashes, huge dip for 1 day, because people's focus goes up. So that's the impact that just 1 hour of sleep deprivation gets on a population as a whole. So it's fucking crazy.
By the way, I hate being in New South Wales now for that.
Daylight savings?
Yeah, well, I've been in Queensland since I was 18.
Yeah.
And being 34 now is my first time back in New South Wales.
Now your curtains are fading. Fucking cows get up too early.
I do like the early stuff, but I like Queensland when it was 4:30 and getting up early.
Yeah.
Well, was the only time I saw sunlight.
I'm getting a bit better. I'm getting up pretty early here, but I'm told it gets like 4:30 in the morning. It's full noise daylight. I'm not a huge fan of that, but we'll see. So Andy's saying my best shift at work that went from 8 a.m. through to 12 p.m. the next day. Yeah, and look, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Sometimes, like, we're all in extreme endurance events. Most of us watching. If you're not in them yet, I probably will get you into them eventually. We're gonna do shit where we get ourselves sleep deprived. But comment was stupid. I don't know who that is, but okay, I have no idea who that is, but definitely not having an attack at anyone. If anything, I was talking about myself and Nick, talking about how long we used to stay awake, and we wear it as badges of honor. We wear it as in our society, we brag about how much sleep we can get away with and how much sleep we can not have. So sorry if I've offended anyone there, but definitely not what I was intending.
When I did animation and stuff, yeah, we used to actually see who did get the most sleep, have a tally of who's done the most work without sleeping.
100%. We used to have pissing competitions about it when I used to work. Fuck, I've had 8 no-dos, boys. I've been going for 24 hours. It's not good, and you don't know what you don't know, and you learn. And it's like when you do dumb shit when you're a kid, and then you get older and you mature a bit, and you start to see the world a different way, and you start to see that things you valued before you don't value now. And I think there's just a learning curve that has to happen. So that's the whole point of this video, is to educate, get people to understand. Don't be nonchalant about it. This is important. So another really important thing. So we've obviously spoken about the focus. You're going to be a lot less attentive. You're going to get these micro sleeps, which can kill. You're going to just be performing at a much lower level. But many of you would be familiar with the effects that not enough sleep has on your mood. So I'm getting very tuned in to knowing when I've been short on sleep and when I'm being a little bit grumpy. Today, there was a couple of things that happened that I'm usually pretty carefree, pretty easy, but I had a couple of nights of no sleep, and a couple of things just annoyed me. And I sort of went, it happened, and these are just normal things that happen when you run boot camps, and things just happen. And normally I'm like, everything's fine, but things were happening, and I'm like, fuck. And then I'm like, why am I fucking so angry about this? Like, what the fuck? Like, why do I even care? This is just all part of it. Do you say that? Do you get a bit moody?
Absolutely.
You get a bit tired? Do you get hungry as well? I get fucking so hungry.
Yeah. I have a thing like, if I haven't slept enough, I got to heads up. I've had this much sleep. Warning with you, I'll be the best I can, but if I snap, I do apologize now in advance.
Yeah, I probably do the same thing with Dominic, I imagine. Sometimes I might be a little bit moody, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I haven't slept.
Yeah, I put the warning straight out.
Yeah, you like front load it.
Yeah.
Just be ready. Be always fucking ready. All right. So there's science. There's science to back this up. Everyone knows if you don't get enough sleep, you're moody. Your kid doesn't get enough sleep, you're moody. Everyone would be familiar with this, with just having a little bit of a shorter fuse. You're a little bit more run down. I imagine people in 2020 having to homeschool kids, having more on their plate, not as much sleep. All of a sudden the fuses are getting shorter. It's a real thing. What's happening is our emotions are controlled by our amygdala. And we've spoken about this before in earlier episodes. I think we were talking about it last week as well. So your amygdala is deep in your lizard brain. So it's very primal. It's been around for hundreds of millions of years. And it controls these urges, these instincts, these fucking emotions, these things that drive you to survive and do things. Your chimp brain, your upper outer brain, evolved much later. And your chimp brain is the professor brain. That's what's controlling all the logic. So what's happening when you're getting sleep deprived is your brain's losing the ability to communicate and have this open line of communication between your frontal neocortex, which is the part of the brain that's controlling that logic and making rational decisions, and your amygdala, which is making your emotional decisions. So basically, what usually happens is something will happen that would annoy you, and you go, that's annoying. And your brain goes, oh, they probably said this for this reason. And you go, I'm fine. But when I was tired and something happens, I don't have that buffer. I don't have that part of my brain that's the ration and the logic and the rationality saying there's nothing in that. You're just tired. So that's why you get tired. It's actually that's what's happening. We're going to talk a little bit more about that amygdala, frontal neocortex connection a little bit later when we talk about fat loss, because it's very, very important. But let us know in the comments, guys, if you get a little bit angry when you're tired, if you get a little bit moody. So Ree's saying, now Hurricane Heat 4 scares me. Please take a nap. Don't be scared of the hurricane. Nick's running it. Why would you be scared of this lovely man? So easy on you guys. Just sign up. I reckon it's going to sell out too. I reckon it'll sell out pretty fast. So if you are sitting on the fence about a hurricane, guys, there are COVID restrictions. If you miss out, you're going to fucking miss out. And, we haven't had a race for a long time, so do not miss out. But yeah, the mood is a huge one. It makes you angry. You got anything to add there, Nick?
No, basically you covered a lot. No, that's exactly,
Another thing that's happening when you sleep overnight is you're getting a bit of a reset. So as we said before, your brain goes through, it cleans everything out. It also processes and removes all the shit from the day before and archives it. This is really, really important because it does the same thing with all your emotions. So if you've been angry and stressed and really worried about certain shit, your good, healthy sleep is your fucking brain's reset button. That's where you get back to your baseline and healthy baseline. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you could be angry for a long time. You're going to be moody about things for a much longer period than what you normally would be. So that's another vicious prong of that aspect of it as well. Now, not getting enough sleep, touching on the same thing, is super, super bad for your mental health. Pretty much every documented mental health condition that we have, there's a strong link between not sleeping. So almost every single serious mental health condition you could list, those people always have sleep problems. Now, whether that's causality or correlation is not 100% fully understood, but they've found that improving somebody's sleep quality, it will almost always improve the mental health condition, whether it's depression, whether it's bipolar or something like that, pretty much anything on the spectrum. Usually there's always an association between poor sleep and the condition they have. And they can set off pretty much anyone. So like schizophrenics and bipolar and stuff like that, if they sleep deprive them, they will have an episode. It's just, that's how bad it can be when you don't get it if you've already got something predisposed happening there. Whether that means not getting sleep is causing that, not necessarily true, but it's a huge thing. Andy said, got a question. When working night shift, I can't sleep more than 3 to 4 hours a night. Once I'm up, can't get back to sleep. I did feel like a zombie the whole time, but awake but not sleepy. What causes you to feel that but not sleepy? So we touched on this last week, Andy, and it would definitely, if you didn't catch last week, definitely go back and watch it. We sort of spoke about sleep and why we need it, what it does. But basically, you've got your circadian rhythms that are programming when you sleep. They're really, really fucking powerful. So your circadian rhythms are what tells you to get up, what tells you to go to sleep, what tells you testosterone when to peak, what tells you hormones when to go into production, all that type of stuff. That's what is really strongly waking you up. That's what's really strongly getting you to go to sleep. It's turning your melatonin on, it's turning your cortisol on in the morning, your melatonin off in the morning, and it's really controlling those cycles. Now, if you go and say fly from Sydney to London, and it's now, I don't know what time it is there now, 3 in the morning. If you're in London and you've flown there, it's going to take your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm will adjust an hour a day or roundabouts, pretty close to that. So if you're on shifts for 4 or 5 nights, 5, 6 nights, 7 nights, you're probably by the end of it starting to feel pretty good. And then you go back onto the other shift, and now you're just always playing this catch-up game. And this is a really, really, really big problem. The documented health risks in shift workers is fucking huge. They've actually caused, they've actually listed shift work as a probable carcinogen now. So it's listed as a carcinogenic. Shift work is listed as something that causes cancer, like cigarettes. So that's literally what you're doing. You're fucking yourself up. It takes a long time for your body to adjust. If you're always in the sleep, if your shifts are always bouncing around, your body's never going to catch up. Mick's definitely going to talk about hacking at the end, and we're going to give you a lot of good tips. But ultimately, man, you're playing a bitch of a battle there, working shifts, especially if they're changing. If you're in the same shift all the time, like if you just work night shift, you'll sort of pick up a little bit more regularity there. But yeah, it's fucking bad. The other thing that's working to make you sleepy is something called adenosine. So you've basically got this adenosine timer. So once you wake up and you get out of bed, your adenosine starts ticking, and it just keeps accumulating and accumulating. And this builds up what we call sleep pressure. And this is what makes you fall asleep. And this is why, as we mentioned last week, this can happen when you go to sleep, or say you stay awake all night, and you've, say, gotten up at 6 a.m., you've done some Spartan events, you've done a 4-hour hurricane or a 12-hour hurricane heat overnight, and it's, you're getting really, really sleepy. 4 in the morning, you've been awake for nearly 24 hours, you're pretty fucked. Everything about your body's telling you to go to sleep. Your circadian rhythm's telling you should be asleep. Your adenosine's telling you should be asleep. So you're really fucked. But then what's going to happen is your circadian rhythm is going to pick back up. So as you come into the morning and the sun comes up, you get this second wind, and you're like, wow, I actually feel pretty good. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, you're fucked again. And then all of a sudden, you're good again. And it will happen in the morning. And that will sort of keep happening as your circadian rhythm is picking up. Even though your adenosine is still accumulating until you go to sleep, your circadian rhythm is telling you that you should be awake. So these two systems that control sleep are not synchronized. And that's probably what's happening there with your shifts, to answer that. Dora's saying I'm irritable right now. Yeah, have a nap, girl. Have a nap. So somebody's just said, do you think taking supplements like GABA useful in helping you regulate your sleep, or is it better to do it naturally? We'll definitely talk about some of that stuff. There's a couple more doom and gloom. This is what happens if you don't want to talk about, because it's very important that you guys know what's happening if you don't get it, and then it's up to you what you do with that information. I don't give a fuck if you sleep, but I'd rather at least give you the information to make an educated choice. And then you can go, well, I'm going to prioritize my sleep a little bit more because now I know what it's doing to me. And that's what life's all about.
But speaking about studies with they've done on sleep, did you read the one about the rats they did?
Plenty of them.
Yeah, the one where they kept them up and they died within like a month. Every time they went to sleep, they just kept them awake.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's like the rat's brain is close in that like mimic before going into inhumane processes.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think like just that could kill you.
Oh, yeah. If you sleep deprived for someone long enough, they'll die. 100%. There's actually a condition that they've found. It's super rare, but people will just develop an increasing insomnia, and eventually where they just cannot sleep, and they have a very, very, very fucking short life expectancy, like 4 months. Which is super sad, and they don't know why it happens or how to control it. They just know that it does happen. Yeah, it's
just that it's a vicious cycle because they're getting lack of sleep, which is then causing more problems to come through, which is just pounding so they can't actually sleep at all.
Yeah, I'll give you another study that's probably even fucking worse, and will make your stomach turn. So they took rats in 2 different studies, 2 different control groups, fed them the same food, everything identical except for sleep, and they injected them with cancer. So they injected them with tumours.
Yeah.
And what they did is then they sleep deprived one group and they let the other group sleep naturally, and then after a certain amount of time they looked at the rats and the sleep deprived group, and I don't think it was a huge amount. I think it was like they cut their sleep in half. So probably listing what you guys are listing, 4 hours sleep a night, 5 hours sleep a night. In the control group that they did the rat get sleep, their tumours were fucking enormous because all the T fighter cells and the cells in the immune system that control your body and keep your body healthy. They're one of the first things to get to suffer from sleep deprivation. So if you have cancer and you are not sleeping, you're basically pouring fuel on a fire, which is not good. And that's probably true of pretty much any condition, which is super sobering there. They've done some really, really fucked up things to rats. They've also done heaps of fucked up experiments to dogs, which just makes me more upset.
Yeah,
I don't know why it makes me more upset than rats, but it does.
Easy. You got a dog.
I've got a dog. Yeah, he's asleep right now. He's not.
I got no problem with the habit of cats. I don't like cats.
My dog sleeps like. You don't like cats.
Dogs, but they're not dogs.
We are definitely going to cop some heat for that comment, Nick. Replace rats with cats.
Only joking.
My dog is definitely sleep deprived. He's fucking sleeps more than anything I've ever seen. They actually, when I was researching the animals that get the most sleep, I think the opossum gets like 18 hours, and there was some form of bat which gets 19 hours, and that's the animal in the animal kingdom that gets the most sleep. And I'm like, fuck that, my dog gets like 21. You scientists are wrong. But couple more comments. We will talk about that.
Yeah.
Andy's saying, cool, man, thanks. So cancer's a big one. Your immune system suffers greatly. They did some experiments where they took a heap of healthy people and they told them this was going to happen. They kept them all under controlled situations, eating the same food, doing the same amount of exercise, all that type of stuff for a set period. And they basically shot rhinovirus directly out their nose. So they told them what was all going to happen. They basically shot the flu directly out their fucking nose. And they did these studies by a control group of people who were sleep deprived, and then a control group of people who had normal sleep, and then they tracked them for like the next 2 weeks and tracked every bit of mucus that came out, everything that happened, and they found that the statistical probability that the people who were sleep deprived before they got injected with the flu virus getting sick was like significantly higher, because your body just doesn't have the fuel, like your body doesn't have the fighters that it needs to keep the viruses and everything that we come in contact with every day. It doesn't have the tools it needs to keep that shit away. Another thing that is super important is something we were talking about earlier is dementia. So dementia, cancer are probably the two things that are scariest. I'm shit scared of dementia. I reckon that'd be probably the worst way to fucking go. I reckon if your brain went, that terrifies me. And we were talking earlier about when you sleep and when you're in that NREM, your body is, sending in the cleaners with the pressure washers and cleaning all the shit and all the clunk out of your head and archiving everything and getting rid of the stuff that it doesn't need. And when you are not getting that sleep, your brain's not getting it. It's clean out. And I can't remember the name of the protein that causes dementia, but it basically builds up amyloid or something. I can't remember. I probably should have written it down. Amyloid, I think. Anyway, so it basically doesn't get cleaned out, and where it tends to stick to, it's like a plaque. Think of it as like plaque teeth, plaque on your teeth. Yeah. Where it tends to affect the most is the frontal lobe, and that's the part of the brain that generates this NREM sleep. And this is the part of the brain that is usually the first to go in the elderly. That's why the elderly can't generate as much sleep and they don't sleep as much, even though they need as much sleep. But what happens is you now get this really vicious cycle of the dementia not getting cleaned out because it's not getting enough sleep, and then it's attacking the part of the brain that generates the type of sleep that it actually needs to get fucking removed, and that's why it accelerates. So they're actually looking into tracking people's sleep in their 30s and their 40s as a pre-indicator of whether somebody's going to get dementia, and that's super, super important. Anything else, Mick, on cancer, dementia, like real strong health things?
Yeah, well, basically from the dementia side of things, they've also started seeing that process can also lead further on to the cerebral cortex and start inhibiting motor function.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And stuff like 100%. That, like not like so inhibiting to the point that just like now where you lack of sleep, it's like you feel slow, like literally a permanent blockage in just regular movement. That's why some people who have had like really lack of sleep, actually have trouble even doing a simple task of catching the ball, having the timing just to catch the ball because they no longer have that motor function to actually keep up with it. So it's just
it comes back to that impairment too, right? Like if you are that sleep deprived, you become a fucking zombie. You can't move around, and then if you're not using parts of your brain, you lose it. So it's all a vicious accelerating cycle. But sleep is bad if you don't get enough of it. We're gonna keep talking about doom and gloom, but probably something that might, if you haven't been scared off the fence yet and gone, fuck, I should probably sleep more. Now we're going to start talking about performance. Now we're going to start talking about things like fat loss. We're going to start talking about what happens if you don't get enough sleep and how that could be really inhibiting your goals that you're putting a lot of time and effort into. So first, let's talk about fat loss. Probably almost everyone has had a time in their life where they've probably battled weight or wanted to lose weight or has with weight.
COVID kilos.
Those COVID kilos. Most people, I would say, have some sort of roller coaster where you go in the top paddock for a while, you put on a few kilos, and then you go, probably do something about this. Get into a gym, get back in the exercise, get yourself back to where you want to be, and then you start to relax a little bit, or your life gets busy. Priorities change. One of my mates just had a kid, and he's cutting his CrossFit a little bit because his values, his priorities have changed, and that happens as you go through life. So it'd be a pretty common story, I'd imagine. So let's talk about what's happening when you are trying to lose fat if you're also not sleeping, because I can think of a lot of people who are trying to lose fat who are probably missing sleep to exercise. I imagine that would be a reasonably common thing. So somebody who isn't sleeping enough, they're going, well, I need to exercise, but not enough time. So I'm going to exercise, and it's going to come at the cost of my sleep. I'm going to get up earlier in the morning, but I'm not going to go to bed any earlier. It's really bad. There's a couple of really, really powerful hormones that are in a lot of control with fat loss. You've got leptin, and that is that's the hormone that tells you that you're full. Stands for, I think it comes from leptos, which I think means slender. And that basically tells you when you're full. That tells you when you're satiated. That tells you when you've eaten enough. That tells you when you can't eat anymore. And that's a big thing because we know, both know as coaches, if somebody comes to me and says, I want to lose weight, nutrition is going to be probably the biggest pathway, the best way to manage that. But I'm only just learning how important sleep is. So your leptin is what tells you that you're full. Your ghrelin is another hormone, and ghrelin is what tells you that it's time to eat. Ghrelin is what tells you you're hungry. So you have these two rival sort of hormones. So one telling you you're full, one telling you you have to eat. Now, the more leptin you have, the more full you are. The more ghrelin you have, the hungrier you are. When you, I think ghrelin means growth. When you are sleep deprived, your leptin goes down and your ghrelin goes up. So not only do you not feel as full when you eat, but you also feel hungrier, and you're literally getting smashed on both sides. So it's a really, really bad situation. Do you notice anything change in your eating habits, Mick, with your sleep?
Oh, absolutely. I'm viciously hungry.
Yeah.
I mean, because I eat enough as it is anyway. But yeah, when I lack of sleep, I've literally, when I was doing animation, that's how I got up to 150 kilos, because it was so lack of sleep. I was always eating. I was always seemed always hungry. And stuff. That's why I've even had to, and I'll talk more about this in the haggis, I like set markers to make sure I don't. Even today, I had to like make sure, okay, you can do this amount, but anymore you are going to be going, and even the food types. We start craving. It makes us want to go more of the sugary stuff because we think, oh, it's energy as well. Get that.
We're going to talk about that too, because that's important that you brought that up. We're actually we have this thing called spatial memory. Humans, and this is sort of going off on a bit of a tangent, but that's not unusual for me. We have this thing called spatial memory, which is basically where we remember things are in our environment. Remember where the food is, we remember where the fridge is, we remember where the bathroom is, right? And we're actually much better at remembering where bad food is than good food, or well, I'll say calorie dense food. So you always remember where the fucking ice cream is, but do you know where the I'm trying to think of something healthy. I've got nothing. Do you know where the really healthy food is? Probably not. You'd have to probably go looking for
Right
it.
now, I'm still thinking about the Carl Jr. I just had.
Carl Jr.
Yeah, you think about where the closest, like if he's thinking, oh, I want to go out, you know where the closest like grilled or something is.
Right.
But if you want something nice that's healthy, it's like.
Yeah, I just mean in the
in
your house, in the cupboard, and that's why things like hiding food can be effective. You're adding more friction between you and the thing that you don't want to do, the activity that you don't want to promote, or whatever it is. But so it's lowering your leptin, it's improving you, it's increasing your ghrelin. So you're eating more, you're feeling like you need to eat more. What's also happening, we're going to go back to this connection between the amygdala and the frontal neocortex. So the lizard brain, the emotion, the thing that's driving you to eat, the thing that's really driving you to get out of bed. And then we're talking about the frontal neocortex, which is the chimp brain, the professor brain, the part of the brain that makes the logical choices, the part of the brain when you say, I feel like ice cream, and then your brain goes, no, you don't. You're on a diet. And then you go, okay. And then you don't have ice cream. So we were talking about what happens with your mood and how your amygdala creates that emotion, and the front of your brain is the part that stops you from getting angry. And when that is severed, you're much more likely to be moody. When you're tired, you're also much more likely to have really big emotion. So, not being tired doesn't make you depressed. It doesn't make you unhappy. It makes you swing a lot more. So you have higher highs and lower lows. And that's too. But same thing is happening. It's the same pathway that's happening when you don't get enough sleep. You start to make much poorer food choices. So not only do you eat more, and you will eat. They did some studies and they found on average like 300 calories more across a group who were allowed to get 4 hours sleep compared to a group who were allowed to get 8 hours. So they found on average 300 calories more were eaten by the group that had 4 hours sleep. These people had the exact same day, same amount of exercise. Every other control was factored in. What they then did was they started adding different choices into the diet of what these people were allowed to eat. They also did tests on giving them set amounts of food and then telling them how hungry they were, and that's how they learned the difference between the leptin and the ghrelin. But they also started adding in like bad choices. So they gave these people access to chocolate and access to all this really high calorie, high sugar, really bang fucking energy sources. And they found that as people were sleep deprived, they tended to make much poorer choices. They would go back for more dessert, but they weren't going back for more vegetables. They were going back for more ice cream. They were going back for more sweets. So there's an evolutionary thing that's happening there. If you're not getting enough sleep, chances are pretty high you're in a really high stress environment, right? If there's another tribe invading, or there's a fucking tiger that's trying to kill your tribe. So that's a really, really good time to stock up on energy. It's a really good time to make sure that your base, you get yourself as big and strong and tough as you can, because you're going through hard times. So that's what's happening from an evolutionary standpoint. But it's super, super interesting, that you actually make those choices. I know if I don't sleep and I week without sleep, that's when I'll start going to Macca's at like 1 a.m. Whereas if I'm getting a lot of sleep, that thought repulses me. But if I go a few nights without sleep, I get munchies. They actually found another thing. So when you get sleep deprived, your brain produces something. I can't remember what it is. It's something cannabinoid, and it's actually the same chemical that's being introduced with THC. So it's the same thing that you get if you smoke pot and you get the munchies. Your brain's actually producing a really similar chemical, and that's why you are eating more. Did you know any of that, Nick?
No, I know that one.
Does that track? Have you noticed that? Have you found that you find you make poorer food choices when you're tired?
Oh, easily.
So not just eating more, but actually eating worse food.
Easily, yeah.
yeah, it was certainly eye-opening for me because that was something that really made sense. I'm, you know what, have shit willpower. Maybe when I haven't slept for 4 days, that I'm stacking all the fucking odds against me, and maybe that's what's actually happening. Dora said, I left shift working for that reason. Couldn't sleep during the day. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Whoops at me. Can
That's what we were
do
talking about.
PTs early as 4 a.m. Yeah, fuck that. Karen, I work shift work and constantly reach for anything sugar when I don't get enough sleep. Yeah. So I think a lot of people would just have gone, wow, that's fucking crazy. That's a crazy fact. I certainly did. Yeah. Have you got anything else to add there about diet, Nick?
Well, not about the food choices, stuff like that.
No?
No.
Okay. About fat loss in general? About having
No, you covered most of it, actually. You've really dived into this one.
Yeah, man. I actually did my research.
Yeah.
Thought I didn't have enough balls in there this week. So, another thing that's really, really important is lack of sleep really fucks with your testosterone. So if you're a dude and you're training, and you're trying to get jacked and you're trying to get stronger, lack of sleep is really, really going to affect your testosterone levels. So that's really going to impede any progress that you're going to make. Another really, really interesting study that was done, they used two healthy, fairly fit groups of men with a little bit of extra body fat that they needed to lose. They put them on controlled exercise, controlled sleep, controlled diet. And the only difference between the two study groups was one group got 8 hours, one group got 4 hours sleep. And they've replicated studies like this all over the world with different amounts, 5 hours, 6 hours. And what they found was in the sleep deprived group, the men who were running at a calorie burned a lot more lean muscle. So they burned a lot more lean muscle as fuel, and their bodies retained the fat. And the group that were getting enough sleep burnt a lot more fat and retained the lean muscle. So, and that's an evolutionary thing too. The fat is a better fuel source, so your body will hold on to it. If it knows it's under stress, it's like, what can I afford to lose? The fat's going to sustain me longer than the muscle will. So I'll catabolize. I'll eat the muscle now, and I'll save the fat for later. So that's a really, really important thing, because I know a lot of people, I've worked with a lot of people over the years who, are just doing a lot, and they're fucking working hard and they're eating right, and it's just not working. And just getting enough sleep can be the thing to really turn that around. Anything else there to add, Nick, about performance?
Well, yeah, so you think, because I'd actually like to see that study and how it related also to what their resting heart rate would be, because they probably were in more of a glycolytic state, and that's why they were burning more muscle.
So definitely. So as you sleep deprive, your heart rate goes up and your blood pressure also goes up. So it's running along some of those pathways as well. And we covered that in breathing earlier, talking about controlling the breath, controlling the energy systems that you're going to be in, whether you're in the aerobic zone or whether you're in your anaerobic zone. So definitely go back and watch that. Somebody's just said doesn't make sense for me. Corey, this doesn't make sense for me. Which bit? Let us know now. So look, there's plenty more reasons why you guys should get sleep. I feel like we're going to run over again. I don't know if we can turn this into 3 episodes. If you guys want to learn more, we can cover an episode. But what I'd like to do is sort of shift gears now. I think we've covered enough, and I think we've given you guys enough reason to go, well, probably should sleep, because if you didn't care about cancer and dementia, you might be a bit younger and worrying about getting strong and getting fit, and you might go, well, that's the thing that I care about, and that's the thing that's going to make me change my ways. So hopefully we've just hit you on enough angles there that one of them fucking sank in. But Mick, mate, you're the biohacking guy. You're the guy who looks into all the different ways to tweak your body through ice baths and morning light exposure and stuff like that. So, which is one of the reasons why we're doing these talks. Mate, I'm going to pretty much hand over the reins to you. Let's talk about how you can get more sleep.
Well, first thing of all, nothing beats proper sleep. This is not about hacking your sleep so you can do 3 hours a day of sleep continuously. Okay, this is not it.
I'm just gonna film socials, mate. Love it. It's not very often I don't have to do things.
Okay, these are just tricks that over what I've researched in the years that I've actually implemented for myself have made me to be able to be more at a better performance and sustain more without a long-term injury, but nothing beats going back to sleep. I know some people, they say, oh, I'm great on 5 hours all the time. And it's like, if you go and actually do 7.5 hours regularly, you'll be surprised. I thought I could do it all at 4.5 hours, just being on my sleep cycles of every 90 minutes. And I did that for 6 months to a year.
Well, interesting you say that. People like your Margaret Thatchers, you guys like your Ronald Reagans, the guys who were very vocal about surviving on 4 hours sleep a night. All got fucking dementia.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If doing this, you will be taken away from something. Okay. Sleep is just, let's face it, when you get sick, what's the first thing you do? You want to go to sleep.
So Corey's I'm just going to jump in there, Mick. Corey's just said, I want to put on some fat for longer events, but I stay super lean. Yet I don't sleep well. I just don't get fat. Also, my resting heart rate is lower than average, and I eat my fair share of sugar. Yeah, you definitely have a lot of output, but you're just a super quick metabolism too, Corey. Yeah. You're always going to be fairly lean. I would say you're never going to struggle too much with carrying too much body fat, unless you get very, very lazy and start eating a lot more food. But on the flip side of that, it's probably going to be pretty easy for you to stay lean, but it's probably hard for you to gain muscle. Whereas Nick and I are both a little bit bigger, a little bit mesomorphy. I know that if I eat a lot and train a lot, I go fucking bang. And if I don't eat a lot and I train a lot, I slim down quite quickly. But I've got to watch what I eat. I imagine you'd be the same, Nick. Whereas I know people who are a lot more ectomorphy and they can eat what they want. They'd be slim, pretty light, but they struggle to put on muscle.
I hate those guys. They can just eat.
Then you got people on the other end of the spectrum who are endomorphy. Yeah. They're big. They can eat fucking celery and they'll still be big. And they tend to put on muscle really, really easy. And that's where you see like your strong men and stuff like that. They're usually quite fat, strong men, or they have a lot of body fat, but they're fucking strong. Like, they're not jacked. They don't look like bodybuilders. So that's a bit of an interesting distinction there. But sorry, Mick, you go.
Yeah. So let's just talk about. So the best thing you're going to do for the first thing I always say that you're going to hack is when you have a bad night's sleep. So I got crap sleep last night. You got crap sleep last night. When you've woken up and you're like, you only got those 4 hours and stuff, but you've got to go somewhere. You have to get up and because your job calls for it, or there's something you're doing today. You're doing a Spartan boot camp or something like that you want to get to, but you are completely still quite groggy. This is because your body goes back into another sleep cycle or is in mid-sleep cycle, and you've now woken it up. So it's now sort of stalled. Instead of being efficient in doing one thing, you've now split it. Way you can hack this one, this is my favorite one, is the cold showers in the morning. When you actually get in there, and I don't mean start off warm and then get cold, you've got to go first one straight up cold, because this actually activates your fight and flight. So this is if you know you're feeling groggy and you've got to go somewhere and you're thinking, oh shit, I don't know if I should be driving because I'm still feeling like I'm half asleep. This will be the first marker to test if you are able to go driving. Because when it hits, it'll wake you up and then you'll feel it. You'll feel like you're ready to go. If you're not ready to go, you better be calling in saying, I cannot drive. Okay, that is your first marker. These are markers that you can actually, when you practice them, you'll feel the difference they do for you, and then you'll be able to sort of set yourself tests and stuff of how you know where you're at.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to jump in there just with one thing. If you're driving a fucking car and you know you're tired, don't start throwing cold water in your face and go, I'm good to drive. You're fucking tired, pull over.
Don't throw cold water in the face. You've got to get the whole body. The body needs to feel it completely over too. Cold water in the face will not do anywhere near as much as an actual cold shower. Okay? Minute cold shower will do way more because the whole body will feel it. It'll ignite your blood flow, circulation will increase, and it'll give you way more than just a little splash on the face. Because let's face it, when people do a cold water splash, it's usually like just a little bit. You gotta get in it.
Dunk your head.
Yeah. The other thing you'll be doing basically is learning when you go to have bad night's sleep. if you know you've got something coming up. So for me, this weekend, I've got my 24-hour challenge I do for myself and stuff like that, because I'm that kind of guy that just likes to do it on my own for fun. I bank my sleep. So what I mean by banking my sleep is for this week, I'm making sure I'm going to get those 9 hours.
Yep.
So I'm going into a 24 hours. So when you've got the hurricane heats coming up and you've got the weekend, you know you're not going to get a lot of sleep. It's going to be a very, this is where you can make just like when you're training for an event, you train your sleep to be ready as well. You can bank more sleep, which will help you in the long run. You can't get back what you missed, but you can bank going forward.
Yeah, a lot of special forces, a lot of special operators and stuff do this. I definitely do it. I've been doing it for a few years now with events. It's gotten a little bit harder as Onemoorerep's grown, because I tend to be on social media and meeting clients and catching up with people. But prior to a 24-hour enduro last year, I did try to bank as much sleep as I could. It definitely works. Sorry.
No, that's good. So yeah, those are good ones. Now we were talking about light, and who was talking about?
Yeah.
Light is great to keep you up. Light is great in the morning to get you that will kickstart your circadian rhythm. And I definitely found out this week, because when I went to the country, I had a veranda that just got hit with beautiful sunlight first thing in the morning, and next thing you know, my sleep was going like gamebuster. I was having some of the best sleeps I've ever had.
So you were getting like light exposure.
Light exposure in the morning.
Sunny's off.
Sunny's off. Getting it on the eyes. The eyes need to see it as well. It can't just be the skin. You really get more activation coming through. That's why we have those blue blocker glasses we were rocking the other week.
Yeah.
And that. But when you go into bed, you want to go the other way. So light and warmth will wake you up, make you feel better and stuff. It's cold and dark is the best environment to sleep. Now I know, especially some of you guys in Queensland, it's like, well, how the hell do you do that? Because you don't want to have the aircon going all night, because that's going to kill the electricity bill. Something chronic. And this is one I was just telling you about, which was really fun, was actually wearing socks to bed.
Right.
So you wear socks to bed, not your pajamas, get your birthday suit, and wear socks to bed, because your feet have now got more warmth, and because they are the most distal part from your heart, your body considers your temperature quite elevated, so it doesn't actually produce so much heat, so it'll bring your internal temperature down.
Oh, I like that.
Which it makes you actually a lot easier to sleep during the summer periods and stuff like that.
I like that. So you're naked, you've got socks on, and your body's going, well, my feet are warm, and that's really far away, so I must be warm everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So put socks on. But you're not allowed to have sex with socks on when you're nude, because that's fucking weird. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely. It's just like how they get like.
I can see Dom laughing from the bedroom.
And that's like just like how we cryo.
No more socks, Dom.
They cover their hands and the socks and stuff, hands and feet when they do the cryo, because those are the most exposed parts. So when they feel way more, because the nerve endings, there's like I think there's 20
times.
So 20 times more nerve endings every centimeter in your feet than there is on your skin.
Yeah, your feet, your hands and your feet are crazy. Like we have like as many nerve endings in our feet as we do in our hands, but we put them in dead fucking shoe coffins all the time and kill them. Anyway, let's do another talk about that.
Yeah.
All right, can we backtrack a second?
Yeah.
We were talking about light exposure. So we're talking about getting good light exposure in the mornings. Can we talk about not getting light exposure before bed? Or are we going to come back to that?
We're going to now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So as we said, like, the good thing was, like, you saw us last week. We had the blue blocking glasses on, stuff like that. This is again the same thing. It is good in the morning, but in the afternoon, it's not as a good thing. And it's not just the exposed type of light; it's the frequency of light that it is. So the morning sunlight and stuff like that is warm, and its frequency is I can't remember the exact numbers, but basically it runs on a different frequency than what you would get if you had, say, a campfire. That's why when people have the open fires,
different wavelengths
and stuff like that. That's why when people have those fires and stuff, they find it kind of relaxing in front of the fire before night. That is a different source of light. Because that is on a whole different wavelength, that actually does trigger your body to go into more sleep by actually increasing melatonin productions as you're going into pre-melatonin.
Interestingly enough, I used to work years ago. I was a plant mechanic, and we used to work on these a lot of these big 3-wheel forklifts, and they have them at all the chicken farms. So I used to go down and fix all these forklifts and do a lot of welding and stuff like that. And we used to fit the lights onto these forklifts. We used to fit them with red lights, like red lens caps over the lights, because what would happen when they went in to do the chicken picking into these big barns where there's just fucking hundreds of chickens, thousands of chickens. They drive these forklifts in, and forklifts making a lot of noise. But if they had like white lights and blue lights on these machines, all the chickens would wake up, go into a fucking frenzy, run into the corner, all climb on top of each other, and they'd all fucking die at the bottom. Really fucked up, right? But if they had red light, it opens up, and they'd be a lot more docile and a lot easier to catch. And that was just really, really fucking interesting about like blue and red light and how it has that effect.
Well, that's why, like, as I showed you guys last week,
you
got my phone, and it goes, so I press it 3 times, and this is actually something, if you go into accessories and settings and stuff like that and button thing,
I was trying to find that.
You can do that, but I'll do a video.
I've turned mine way down, so now at like 9 p.m. it full like red shifts like that, but I couldn't find that setting. So
so that's actually just a hue setting in the accessories that comes with any standard. Like I've been doing that for like back in the day, on iPhones anyway. But that is one, because even with the blue light, the settings they got, because they still want you to be able to visualize what you're seeing, and still so it doesn't differentiate too much in the color spectrum of what you're watching, they will actually, it doesn't go as deep as you really want it to go.
And think about like if you're walking down the street, those TVs are on, what's the color that's coming out of the lounge rooms? It's always fucking blue. Always. That's the TVs just fucking shoot it out. So do laptops, computer screens. Facebook, the color scheme of Facebook is blue because it keeps you more alert, keeps you on the platform longer. It's a lot of fucking science in that. The longer you're on Facebook, the more fucking ads they are showing you, the more money they're making.
Absolutely.
So that's no accident. So getting too much light exposure is going to fuck you up. That's one area that I definitely need to work on, is getting off the devices, getting off the laptops, getting off the iPads, getting off the fucking TV prior to bed. So limiting light exposure.
Limiting light exposure. And the best way you guys can do this is literally take a look at your day and write it down. Like, write down an approach, just like how we all have our sort of little tricks and things we want to do if we're going into an event, if we're going to do our training, you know. Some want to take the pre-work, some people like them before they go train, or your pre-meal food. It's the same thing with sleep. Sleep is no different than any other part of your life in training. If you set up a routine going into it, so for me, I know as soon as it starts dropping to about, well, now at the moment being in New South Wales, 7 o'clock, but when I was in Queensland, 6 o'clock, I would start with the blue blocking glasses, and so that way the light exposure, even if I was going to be late on the computer, by 7:30, 8:30 now, and everything switches to red, and then as I said, with the final setting is when I take it away from the device and focus on a half-hour breath routine and stretching, just like you would if you're warming up to go to train. It's the same thing of setting a routine that's going to fit in your lifestyle, because when you try to just fall asleep, you won't be as productive. And this is where it's like people go on the whole, it's like, you know, how do I get, it's not always the best sleep. I know for a fact I've seen some people that would sleep for like 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours, and they were just, it was terrible sleep. They would still be just
bad sleep quality.
Bad sleep quality.
There's a couple of things that are really, really bad for fucking sleep quality. Caffeine, alcohol is one of the best REM sleep suppressant that we know of.
Oh yeah.
So you can drink alcohol, get really fucking smashed, be dead sleep for like 10 fucking 11 hours and still wake up fucked. I know, I used to do it.
Well, that's it. Yeah, well, that's actually I'll use melatonin.
Yeah.
And stuff like that can be used in small doses. Like, so melatonin is a really cool is something you can actually use, but these are not hacks to use every day. Best melatonin is the one you produce on your own. And the way you do that is with quality light exposure or even doing a hot cold shower therapy.
Yep. So anything that's gonna so you're talking about like hot cold shower, you're talking about work and stuff. What you're doing there is you're deregulating. So you're coming down out of that fight or flight, out of that ready to respond mode, and you're going down into that rest and digest. You're telling your body it's time to fucking slow down. There's no more threats to deal with. It's time to get restorative. And the hot cold stuff's going to do that.
Yeah, so I have a 5-minute shower at night that I do basically 20 seconds cold, 10 seconds hot, and because my body's fluctuating through the thermoregulator to match those temperatures, actually produces more hormones that in that time frame actually starts putting me into a really good sleep. And
cool. Mick's saying, mate, a really good habit of going to bed at 9 p.m, waking up 4 a.m. And helps you perform much better. Excellent, man.
Yeah.
Habits are the best things. Cora says he hates it, he can't bulk. And M saying it's about how many hours of sleep you get right. If I go to bed late and wake up 8 hours later, that's okay. I'm not a morning person. So what I will say here is you tend to get a little bit more NREM sleep at the start of your sleep, and you tend to get more REM sleep at the end of your sleep. So, and that's what we said, if you're very sleep deprived and you go to sleep, you'll have like a dead sleep where you won't fucking move for like 10 hours because you're just in NREM. It's just that really deep sleep. And it's when your brain's cleaning itself, it's storing, archiving all the memories. It's just basically getting rid of all the junk and the clutter, and you're ready to hit it. Your REM sleep is when your brain's connecting everything. That's when you're connecting all the synapses. That's when like young kids are getting a lot of REM sleep. Teenagers are getting a hell of a lot of REM sleep because their brains are creating new connections and new synapses, and they're basically like laying the foundations of the wiring. So what happens is you get your NREM first, and that's when your brain's cleaning itself and archiving. Then you get your REM sleep, and that's where your creativity is coming from. So that's where your brain is taking all of the shit that's happened recently and it's connecting all these things together. So it's new information that I learned. How can I network this with other information in my head? And that's where sometimes you can go to bed and just wake up with an idea. That's what's happening. So what will happen is, say you regularly sleep, let's say what Mick said, 9 p.m, 4 a.m. Say Mick regularly sleeps from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. He would usually get more of his NREM sleep in the beginning of the night, more of his REM sleep later in the night. If Mick loses 4 hours sleep for one particular night, say he goes to bed at 1 a.m. because he has a Christmas party, but he still gets up at 4 a.m, what's going to happen is he's going to get less NREM sleep, and he's going to get more REM, because that's the way his body's programmed and the routine that his brain's set in. If he, on the flip side, he still goes to bed at 9, but for whatever reason gets out of bed at midnight, maybe he has to travel to a really early race or something like that, he's going to get less REM sleep, and that's going to cause problems. So it doesn't really matter when you sleep, as long as it's really consistent. So it's the routine and the consistency that's going to be better. If you're going to sleep 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. one night, and then the next night you're going 12 a.m. to 8 a.m, and then the next night you're 2 a.m. to 10 a.m, and then the next night you're back early again, you're going to have problems as well. Ultimately, you want to make sure you're getting enough sleep. The routine and the regularity of it is going to make an impact as well. So, sorry, Nick.
I love it. It's good. And other thing, because one of the questions we got asked was about eating before sleep.
Yeah.
How are you at eating before sleep?
Good when I'm getting a lot of it. So when I'm getting a lot of sleep, I don't tend to get as hungry. I make better food choices. When I'm getting a lot of sleep, Dom will say, "Do you want an ice cream?" And I'm like, "No, I'm pretty good." But if I'm not getting enough sleep, I'm like, it'll be 10 at night, time to sleep. That's when I'm hungry. So it's really.
Did you know you can actually use your food for certain times to actually increase the production of your sleep, how quickly and how better you can sleep?
No.
So we've all had, like, Christmas time's very known for this, the old food coma and stuff like that.
I reckon it's tryptophan. Yeah. It's the one that's in the turkey and the milk, the protein that makes you sleepy.
It's actually also that's also produced from the stress hormone of the stomach having to stretch so much. And that, now this is a trick I've actually used for a few of my events when I actually, like the trifecta weekends and stuff like that. So I get a better sleep, and this is one I've used because, like, if I've done a big event, you've used a lot of sugars, you've used a lot of triglycerides, you burn a lot of the body. And
eat like a fucking demon.
Oh yeah, like a demon. But if you don't, some of us are too afraid to go in. One little trick I've used is, because I know I have a slight dairy intolerance, like a little bit of dairy. I can still handle it, but not so much.
I think I'm turning into like
that. But I also, and so dairy and a bit of gluten. If I have a big meal, my body will put me into a sleep. So my actually go-to recovery meal that I've used that's made me feel the best in, pint of Ben & Jerry's before I go to bed.
Okay.
Because my body because my body has burnt so much, this is where I love talking about the whole sugar stuff as well, because this point is not bad because my body's gone through so much of it. I will do that and wake up leaner because my body's replenished the muscles, ready for the next
still,
day.
Afterburn, you're still.
But because I've actually, those foods cause my body to have to focus more on digestion and processing them, they pull me out like that. And I've tracked my sleep to like 7.5 hours of just pure, the best sleep I've ever had.
Cool.
I remember waking up after an event, I was like, this was crazy.
Are we publicly telling people that Ben & Jerry's before bed? Is that what we're saying?
I'm not going to say no to Ben & Jerry's though. I can't say, but
Ben & Jerry's at night.
Yeah.
With your best life.
I'm doing like a full, this is like the ultra and stuff when we're down in Brighton for that.
I think
the work's got to match it.
yes, the work's got to match it.
Yes.
You should never feel guilty about eating food.
Yeah.
You need to just, if you want to be slim and perform well, you need to make better choices more often than what you make bad choices. But interesting that you said Ben & Jerry's, because a lot of milk, a lot of that tryptophan, which I mentioned, is the protein makes you feel sleepy. And I think I don't know whether that's actually been debunked, that myth, but the milk before bed is sort of along that same pathway there.
And I mean, that also ties in with the whole leptin and ghrelin sort of stuff, as long as you're doing good sleep. And then this was talking about getting good sleep. This wasn't talking about trying to get quick sleep.
Good.
And that's because, again, otherwise, if you do it when you're not getting proper sleep, you are going to see the other side of it, of waking up and feeling like absolute ass.
Yeah. I think, talking about the foods that don't agree with you and setting off that inflammation of the gut, we can definitely talk about the gut in probably a few later talks. Really, really fucking super important topics. But yeah, definitely eating the wrong foods is going to fuck you up. Do you think there's anything in sleep eating, like timing? Would you say you're not laying in bed spooning Ben & Jerry's in? Are you eating it an hour before? You're eating it 2 hours before?
Timing before, just like anything. Basically, an hour beforehand is okay.
Okay.
And stuff like
that. So
that.
don't take the Pringles to bed, people.
No. Not that. But again, as I said, this is my after event sort of, I want to recover fast and everything. This isn't my Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think recovery is a bit of a different set.
Yes.
What would you say is the go-to, for just your general protocol?
Generally, you can still do a nice, decent meal. I mean, as I said, if you really want to go into it, I mean, this will probably be the one where we do nutrition talks on the types of protein and stuff you could be having. So, like, if you're going to do milk soda, then there's the casein protein, which is a slow release. This is not a bad thing to be having. Rather than a whey isotope and stuff like that. So those sort of things aren't too bad. Again, it also depends, like if you talk to someone who's if you're doing this on your own, it's a lot of trial and error. It's going old world bodybuilder. If you're not going to go see a dietitian to do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that you just want to, basically, the old world Arnie's days of bodybuilding, what they used to do was really quite interesting and very simple. When they had meals, they tracked them, and the next day they looked at their body composition in the mirror and it let them see, and with their weight, and go, do I feel more full or do I feel less?
Yep.
And this is where you can play with this as well.
I think, and I say to is you need to be your own sports scientist. And I've read that in a lot of places. Ross Edgley, who we mentioned before, we're talking about work capacity, resilience. Ross Edgley talks about it. Be your own sports scientist.
No one knows you better than you.
No one knows you better than you. I've certainly gone to doctors and they've told me something and I'm like, you don't know fucking shit, man. And I've been right because I know my body. I know my body better than anyone. You know what works for you. And I think we'll definitely talk about food later. If you eat food and once you start actually tracking and seeing what it's doing to your body and, maybe not getting as close to what you were saying where the bodybuilders were tracking exactly what they're eating and they're measuring their body composition. You tend to be much more extreme when you're a bodybuilder and you have to be. But just learning what's going on with your fucking body. And I think a really good way to do that is sleep journaling. So actually keeping track of what you're eating, keeping track of coffee you had, how many coffees did you have, how much alcohol did you have, and actually journaling how much sleep, and waking up and saying, what was my quality of sleep like? And then you're starting to see correlation between, well, I had my last coffee at 4 p.m. and when I do that, I sleep like fucking shit. now you're able to make educated choices. So now you're able to say, well, you know, when somebody says, "Do you want a coffee at 4 p.m.?" No, because I like sleeping. You said before you're a bit tolerant to gluten and lactose. I went out Friday night before Raw Challenge and had a really, really creamy pasta. And the last couple of times I've done it, and it's a thing that like a big creamy like chicken carbonara or something like that. Fuck, I'm in heaven. And it's always been my pre-race meal. But the last couple of months, as I've been doing it and as I've been eating that meal, I tend to be up in the middle of the night. I have like, diarrhea and I have fucking nightmares and I just sleep really shit. And I'd slept quite good this week until Friday night, where I just had a fucking terrible sleep. And the only thing that changed was the really creamy pasta.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see a bit of a pattern with that food doing that to me. If I have a big pizza or something like that, same sort of thing happens. So it's you start to track and as you start to keep track of what's happening, you start to see cause and effect and you can start to make better choices about what you do. So sleep journaling is a huge one, I think.
Absolutely.
Super important. The Aura Ring, the Whoop bands, the Aura Ring has in the app parts where I can put in how much water I've had, how much caffeine I've had, did I have any alcohol, and it teaches you how to track all that. So there's plenty of apps that do it. You don't actually have to have a physical journal next to the bed. But having a pen and a paper next to the bed can be really, really handy. I really don't recommend having a phone next to the bed.
No.
You keep all your devices out or
I've got my sunlamp now.
Yep.
And stuff. So that's good. Water, the fact that you mentioned that you got to put in water, that's the biggest thing you don't get enough of. When you actually lack in hydration for sleeping, your cells can't actually maneuver well enough. They're not hydrated enough to actually create better sleep tolerances and stuff like that. So you need to make sure that, and you're getting plenty of minerals as well. So Himalayan sea salt is always a good one. And then essential amino acids, but not branched chain amino acids. We're talking the essential amino acids, please. Better profiling and stuff. These sort of things on a gradual sipping sort of stuff can actually help increase sleep because your body's got more nutrient profile to go through and actually
more of the building blocks it needs. Yeah, definitely. Getting enough protein is just super important. We definitely will talk about nutrition, gut health. I think Em said, gut health session would be awesome. That'd be good for me. I got halfway through a book. It's called Gut.
That's a good book.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it for me, man. I don't know. I need to just be in the zone and get back into it. But I think I got sidetracked by that with another book, and then I haven't gone back to it.
Yeah, that was good. I liked that one before I did the 5-day fast.
Yeah, every now and again I get one and I just don't. The narrator just doesn't gel for me.
Oh, I read it.
Yeah. See, I leverage my time, man. I walk. I have to walk. My mouse has gone weird. I have to walk, and that's why I do audiobooks because I just don't have time. I just don't have time to sit down and read a book. So I have to sort of do two things at once. But it's all priorities, right? Let's talk about tech. So we were talking about not being on screens.
Yep.
Do you know much about? And I know there's plenty of advocates for the
binaural
radiation and stuff coming out of your phone while you're sleeping, like your Ben Greenfield body hack and stuff like that.
Your electromagnetic field stuff that comes out,
do you do you put much stock in that for having devices near when you sleep?
I would say yes, because actually I've found a difference tracking my sleep and having this on flight mode and not having it on flight mode, and then tracking my sleep through other things like the Oura Ring and everything. There is a lot of studies for it. I'm not going to go into the point of like Ben Greenfield actually gets a radiographer in to actually electrically see which places are putting off the most.
He's probably crazy. If you don't know who Ben Greenfield is, look him up. He's a lunatic of the biohacker.
The biohacker.
Yeah.
But he stuff that was crazy. So devices do make it, and when you think about it, we haven't been exposed to devices as long as we think we have.
We just don't have enough data. We don't know what it's doing. But I would say definitely for whether it's physical or psychological, my sleep quality has improved as I've completely removed the phone from the bedroom. So the phone does not go into the bedroom now, unless I just walked in there. But if I'm going to sleep, it gets charged in the office. The Apple Watch gets charged in the office. The AirPods get charged in the office. It's not in the bed. And I found just a huge thing I don't wake up in the middle of the night now and go, what time is it? and then I grab my phone and look at the time, and then I see emails and notifications, and then half an hour later I've checked everything, so I go back to sleep. I'm fucked. So I think like that's a huge thing. Just taking the phone out of the room has been massive for me, and I've gone back old school. Like I've got an old clock radio that I can roll over. I can still see what time it is, but it's not. It's it's not throwing out as much shit.
Yeah,
it's probably still throwing out a little bit.
A little bit, but not much. The other thing you could use for tech is Binaural Beats. So there's an app I use. Where is it? It's called.
I looked into them a little bit.
Brain FM.
Binaural Beats. So as far as I know, the binaural beats are basically when you're in different, your brain's in different states. So when you're relaxed, when you're meditating, when you're sleeping, when you're exercising, you're going to be like beta and theta and different brain waves. And the basic premise of binaural beats is you can feed that frequency into your ears and control the, influence the frequency of the brain. So you can put yourself into a more relaxed state. I've seen contrary research for it. Yes. But you've used them.
I use it for my napping during the day because one, it blocks out all other noise around there. So
so a bit of a white noise effect.
Yeah, a bit of white noise effect. But yes, I've found for me, it's something I find on my regular 45 minutes to an hour and a half nap that I try to do during the day. It really, without it, I notice there's a difference in my quality because you've got so many things through the day, sunlight and all those things, which is really hard. Like if you can go into a dark room, of course, always best. But if we can't, I've found this has been able to get me into the same sort of state that a dark room would.
Yep.
Especially when I used to do it when I was working in Brisbane. I'd just go to the Anzac Park and have a sleep on the grass, and then that sort of stuff.
Amazing. One thing I'll say there, because as I said, I've seen contrary research about them. I looked into it. I think I tried them. They didn't work so much for me, and then I did a bit more research and went, okay, it doesn't look like it works. One thing that I will definitely say and is fucking amazingly powerful, whether that works or not, is it works for you.
Yeah.
And the placebo effect is amazingly powerful. And they've done studies like they've taken sprinters and said, before the sprint, we're testing a new energy drink. Here it is. And they give them green liquid and they get them to drink the green liquid and then they run PVs. And it's just fucking water. But,
worked for Looney Tunes on Space Jam.
Worked on Space Jam. The placebo effect is super powerful. So if there's something that you do that people say doesn't work, but works for you, fucking do it. If it's not harming anyone, if it's not bad for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it's not bad for you.
Fucking hell. If a client comes to me and they're like, look, I'm doing this and it's really working for me, and I'm like, and I know it's bullshit. I'm like, do I bust this? Do I tell them, or do I just let them fucking go? And eventually I always will tell them. But sometimes you just got to let people do their own thing for a while. Usually when people work for me for a long time, I tend to change where it's at and change what they think about things. But that stuff takes time. Anything else, man? As far as getting more sleep and improving your sleep?
I think that's the best way to start right now because we could go way more into pretty much.
We talk
this is something that goes a lot into, but generally, if you cannot get the best sleep on the regular basis, these little tricks can help improve your quality of sleep. If you are getting great sleep, add these in anyway and see if your sleep's even better.
A really interesting thing, and another thing I'll say is exercise regularly. Exercise regularly. If you can, half an hour a day would be like the minimum, I would say.
Eat well.
Definitely. They're definitely going to come into play with pretty much anything. But another thing that I'll say is I know you're really good with the biohacking. I know you're really good with getting, maximizing your sleep efficiency, getting the most out of the hours that you are in the bedroom. And you still told me that you sleep 9 hours a night if you can.
Yeah. So
you know these tricks, you know what they are, and you utilize them, but you're still getting more sleep than most of the people who said that they're, not getting any or getting, 5 or 6 hours sleep a night. So, even though you know all this stuff and you know how to hack it, making sure you're getting
these are now tools for me for like last night I only got 3 hours and I was going into it, so I knew what to do to maximize it. So I wasn't a complete mess this morning.
Yeah. So it becomes coping strategies,
Yeah.
right? So you can minimize the harm of it. But like I said before, guys, with the worldwide study that happens every year to 1.5 billion people, daylight savings, heart attacks fly up, road crashes and fatalities fly up because people lose 1 hour of sleep one fucking day of the year. And the reverse is true on the backside of daylight savings. Heart attacks, cardiac arrests go down, and road crashes go down. So you can't be nonchalant about 1 hour of sleep loss. And as we've said, 5 nights of getting 6 hours sleep is the same as staying up for 24 hours straight. So what we've done today is maybe change your opinion and change your mind on how important sleep is. And I wouldn't say scared you into action, but hopefully giving you the tools that you need to make a little bit more educated choice and maybe change the priorities if you have to. Is there anything else you want to say to wrap it up, Nick?
No, I'm happy with all that.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good with that.
Cool. I've got 10% left on the laptop, so we've pretty much found our time cap on what we can do live without a charger. All right. Have we got have we worked out what we're going to talk about next week? Have you got a specific topic you want to talk about, or
nothing? Just like we said, gut maybe later on.
I think leave gut for a little while because I know I have to read that book and it's hard work.
Oh, guts almost up there with sleep.
Yeah, it's super important, and it's not an area that I know a hell of a lot about. So I definitely need a little bit more time to research that. But can you think of anything? Maybe something we're talking about today that we can segue, go down a rabbit hole. That's all right. We can work it out later.
We'll surprise you.
Let us know in the comments, guys, if there is anything specific that you do want to learn about. This is all about making you guys harder to kill, giving you guys the resources to improve your longevity, live longer, live a better life. Thank you for joining us for another week. It will be up on the YouTube in probably tomorrow, and all the episodes are up there in the Harder to Kill playlist. What were you going to say?
Also, if you guys that follow me or you don't follow me, you'll be seeing coming up. I'm taking intake for the new breath work. Remember at the start of COVID, I did that breath program. Yeah. Have taken all that. We have a couple of
people around the world on that. I think you had, I think Mr. Jim Bullard was
Jim Bullard. He's
Natasha over in
they're all
over in the UK.
Yep. So this one is not just your regular breath. We go into stress management, how to basically know the difference from actually being out of breath to what you think's out of breath, and learning all on the chemical levels of what it's doing. It's a 6-week program. I'll be taking intake start this week, and it starts, I believe, in the second week of November. So it's going to get you ready for stress levels when it comes to Christmas.
Awesome. Have you got a link or anything?
No, it all goes up on Tuesday.
If you guys aren't following Mick, get over and follow him. What's your Insta?
Mick_Stuart_coach.
Get over, follow Mick, follow me at Onemoorerep
on Facebook.
Or Uncaged.
Yep.
Get over and follow both of us. And you'll definitely see the launch of that when Mick brings it out later this week. So awesome. I can't think of anything specific that I'm plugging. Plugging away, plenty on. There's going to be a race report come out for Raw Challenge. So if you're not on my mailing list and you want to know all the action, and you just want to hear about stuff that I do in general, talks like this that we miss, I usually send out an email to remind you guys that it's happened. So if if you want to get on the mailing list, get over to my Insta bio and click the link there. But it's all from us for the week. Everyone, have a good week. Get some fucking sleep.
Yes.
All right.